Lily J is a Muslim or like a white girl Australian revert to Islam. She wears her hijab sometimes. She shills out for the IRGC and Hamas frequently, and the Palestinian people. But I don't know. It's like a weird scheme that must be funded, in my opinion, by Qatar or the IRGC in some capacity to try to get Western converts to Islam. Basically glazing Islamism and glazing the shitty things that Muslims do for clout online because she's a blonde Western woman and shocked at how liberal Islam is. Anyways, she strikes back again in this video, like many others that we're going to be reviewing in this video. I'm Tall the Traveling Clad, your sweet Zionist prince. Let's jump into the wonderful world of Islam giving women rights before the West. By the way, if you want to be a sweet Zionist prince or princess like me, get the merch down below in the description at thetravelingclad.com. It's a great place, great way to support the channel. And let's get right into it.
Did you know in Islam, women don't have to cook or clean? Plus, she doesn't have to work. She can if she wants to. Also,
This is bullshit. That's bullshit. They definitely have to cook and clean.
so she doesn't have to breastfeed, and she doesn't have to change her last name when she gets married. Meanwhile, men, they have to take care and provide for their family. They must take full financial responsibility. Shelter, food, clothing, they have to make sure all needs are met. Even if she's wealthy herself, she gets to keep all her money and she doesn't have to share it. But a man has to. Does this sound like oppression to you? Honestly, I feel bad for the men. What do you guys think? Did you know in Islam...
Do you see the way it's a very clever tactic because it feeds on the innocence, or I would say the retardation and ignorance of many people in the West who have no idea. It's specifically feeding on the liberals who have this fantasy idea that Islam is some sort of liberal ideology, which is it's a new form of Islam that I never seen till recently, which is basically like at this point they believe that Muslims are okay with trans, that it's a very weird. I don't really understand where it's coming from, this whole new wave Islam ideology. Sorry, I'm realizing my camera's not that centered. You can't see my wonderful menorah in the back. But you see how it feeds? It preys on the innocence of people who don't really understand. And the reality is everything that she's saying is 100% quantifiably false in the Middle East, where Islam came from. Actually, not only is it quantifiably false in the Middle East, it's wrong in Central Asia, in South Asia, in Southeast Asia, everywhere where Islamism, which is what takes form the second that Islam becomes a majority there, is false. So she's lying, and you have to wonder why she's lying in this way, and why did they choose somebody like her to represent Islam in the West? It's because there's an agenda here to convert in mass. That's the agenda here. What would you look at the camera and say Allahu Akbar? Let's take a look.
Would you look at the camera and say in solidarity, Allahu Akbar?
Allahu Akbar.
Oh.
And would you say Make America Great Again in solidarity with the Trump supporters?
No. No, I'm sorry, I would not.
Who do you have more in common with, a Trump supporter or a radical Islamist?
Radical Islamist. Yes, I am a Democrat. Again, I am one of those people who believe in human beings and human rights and their independency. So I am definitely that kind of person. And honestly, I wish that any of the people from every other country can have that right, especially as with women who are also, especially in Islamic, who are having still having a little bit of an issue right there. So
What are they having an issue with?
With having women like doing stuff like going to school and having their independency. That is what I would support as well.
Okay. You do have more in common with them. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, the second girl, Kapara Alea, well, she seems to be a little off. She's not totally wrong. I mean, what she is advocating for is reform within Islam, which I can't be a hater about. That's kind of what I'm looking for as well. I'm looking for a reform not in Islam, not in the Quran, but in Islam or Islamism or in the wider Muslim community. So I can't even really be angry at her. That's kind of what she was advocating for in that clip. Does she know? It's funny that she says she sees more in common with a radical Islamist than with a Trump supporter, because I don't think that that's true. But Here's a Muslim woman assaulted and humiliated by another Muslim woman for ditching her burqa. Let's take a look. I'm going to take a guess here real quick. I'm going to take one quick guess and guess that this is a false description of the video. I may be wrong, okay? I may be wrong, but I think this is a false description of what's happening in the video here. I actually think that this is an aggressive South Asian, and their society is really fucked up, the Pakistani sort of Bangladeshi Islamism. I think this is just a lady who they're all fine with her walking around with a hijab, but she's just prettier than the rest of them. And they were aggressively sort of embarrassing her in front of a camera. If I had to guess, and this is based on my knowledge of South Asian cultures and kind of how they react and behave. And, I lived there for a while, so I kind of understand it. I could be wrong with what I'm saying, could be bullshitting you, but my idea, it doesn't make it right, but that's what I'm just making clarification here. Muslim feminists cope. In the Quran, men and women are actually spiritually equal. Let's see.
It might surprise a lot of you to know that women in Islamic societies were actually granted rights centuries sooner than their Western counterparts.
Wow.
Men and women are actually seen as spiritually equal in the Quran. I will never deny any of you, male or female, the reward for your deeds. Both are equal in reward. Women also hold the same position in paradise as men. Those who do good, whether male or female, and have faith will enter paradise and will never be wronged, even as much as the speck on a date stone. And the Quran doesn't just say it once, it says it multiple times. Because of their equal position in the Quran, women were given many of the same rights as men in Islamic society. Women were entitled to education. They were given the right to vote. They were able to have a voice and an opinion that their Western counterparts did not get until several centuries later. Women were also allowed to receive inheritance, own property, and be business owners. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him's first wife, Khadijah, actually was a businesswoman herself. Women had the power to hold leadership positions and lead the call to prayer. Women had autonomy. They were able to make the decisions on who they were going to marry. They had the final say in their marriage.
This is just not true.
And they were able to keep their last names if they chose, and had the ability to initiate divorce on their own. And they had,
again, simply not true,
these rights as early as the 6th century. For comparison, English women did not have the right to inherit property until almost the 1900s. Before 1882, property rights went exclusively to their husbands. It's really important that we educate ourselves about the rights of women under Islam instead of believing westernized propaganda.
It's always westernized propaganda until you look into the story of Safiya, who was a Jewish woman from the Banu Quraysh tribe, or Banu Nadir, I can't remember which one. When Muhammad came in and ransacked her village, and he killed her husband and her brother and her father in front of her, he beheaded them in front of her, and then went on to investigate the pubic hair of every man or every boy in that village and kill all the ones who had grown pubic hair and take the rest as slaves. You realize that actually she didn't really have a choice in her marrying Muhammad as his 10th wife, mind you, 10th wife. She didn't really have a choice there. She didn't have a choice on what she did with her life. She just became the wife of the Prophet. So this is just not true. It's also not true in many other cases in the Quran, and in Hadith mostly, because the Quran really doesn't talk about his wives that often, but in Hadith. And it's definitely not true for Muslims today in the Muslim world. Absolutely not. They do not have a choice for the most part in what they do in most Muslim countries, where they go, how they dress, what they do for business, who they marry. Just simply not accurate. And this is known, but this is actually Muslim propaganda, what you're seeing here, that's trying to try to present to you a Western looking, a Western speaking person as if this is TikTok University. This is what we talk about when we make fun and we make jokes about TikTok University. This is it. They try to teach you shit on TikTok and expect you to not research it after, because this is what you're doing. You're brainwashing the youth. Here's an ex-Muslim. No, Islam and women's rights are not compatible on a societal level. By the way, I just want to make a clarification, as I always do. I'm not a hater of Islam. I don't hate Muslims. I don't hate the religion. I don't hate the Quran like many other people do. That's not me. That's not my perspective. I just, I call a spade a spade.
I am an ex-Muslim, and no, Islam and women's rights are not compatible on a societal level. I went to a Muslim private school for 9 years. I wore a hijab. I also lived in the Middle East. My grandfather literally built a mosque back home in the city where I'm from that was named after my uncle who passed away. So I'm not saying this as an outsider. I'm speaking from lived experience. Women should be allowed to practice Islam if that's what they choose. But the moment that Islam becomes the governing framework of society, women's equality collapses. Because women who don't want to live under Sharia law or practice Islam will lose their freedom. And this isn't about culture, it's structural. Islam has been interpreted, enforced, and preserved for centuries, almost entirely by men. When men control religious authority, law, and morality, women's autonomy becomes conditional. And that is not women's equality. People say that Islam needs reform. But real reform wouldn't be cosmetic. It would require dismantling male religious authority and placing interpretive power in the hands of women. And that wouldn't be a tweak. That would be a full-on revolution. And the truth is, patriarchy has been extremely effective in Islam. Women are conditioned to police one another instead of unifying against the system that is clearly oppressing them. Compliance is rewarded and resistance leads to punishment. I mean, I hope that changes. I genuinely do. But women's equality is about having a choice. And if you look at countries like Afghanistan, where it's gotten to the point where women are only allowed to see with one eye, you can clearly see that in most cases, women do not have a choice when they live in a society that is governed under Sharia law. You can argue with me about it all you want. The facts are there. And even in the countries where Sharia law isn't as enforced, it's very frowned upon when women don't wear hijab by their communities. Don't even try to argue with me about this. I lived in the Middle East, okay? I lived in Lebanon. And out of all the countries in the Middle East, Lebanon is the most westernized, okay? And in certain parts of it over there, it's very, very frowned upon for you not to be wearing a hijab. Any system that only works if women comply is not liberation. Women's equality is about having a choice. The women in Iran right now do not have a choice. They're literally risking their lives for basic freedoms. A bird in a park in Iran has more rights than a woman does because a bird can sing out loud and a woman can't. That is not women's equality, and that is not women's liberation. So for those of you who are not Muslim that are preaching Sharia law in the West, what are you doing?
I want to make just one clear. Everything she said is right. I co-sign everything that she says, by the way. But the one caveat is, I want you to think for a second, and this tells you everything you want, everything you need to know about Muslim circles. Why did she wait so long into the video? It's almost a 4-minute video to tell us that she was from Iran. Why? Because this is how Muslims operate. They invaded Iran. They invaded the Persians, right? They took over their country. They colonized them, conquered them violently, and erased their culture, their language. They erased everything from them. They took everything from them and have subjected them till today to a violent ideology that they reject, which is this Shia Islam. She couldn't tell you in the opening seconds of the video that she's Muslim, or that she's from Iran, because even though she's a Muslim and she had this experience, or she was an ex-Muslim, she grew up as Muslim, she grew up in the Middle East, she's clearly Middle Eastern looking. She couldn't tell you she was from Iran, because the second she would have said she's from Iran, Muslims all over the world would be like, it's a fake Muslim. That's not a real Muslim. Right? They discount each other's experiences based on where their families are from. And then expect us to be like, oh, you guys are one unified ummah. That's great. No. You guys treat each other like absolute garbage all the time and everywhere you go. That's why I always call you guys out for it. You are racist towards each other. And Iranians' experiences are valid even though most of the country rejects Islam. Just because most of the country rejects Islam doesn't mean that their experience under Islam is not valid. Same as mine, by the way, my family's. Just because we weren't Muslim doesn't mean the way that you guys abused us and killed us isn't valid. It is valid. And you need to take responsibility for what you guys did.
So
here's a very Caucasian woman dealing with some tough decisions.
we gotta talk about something that me as a white person, very Caucasian, is a little, I don't know, a little spicy. I'm clearly like looking for religion in my life, and right now the closest people to me are Muslim, and I don't know, I kind of like do I want to convert, bro? But like I don't want to wear a hijab, and I also want to drink, so I don't know if I'll be a very good Muslim. But I don't know. I kind of like believe in Allah. Am I really? Oh my God, I'm really saying that. I don't know. Look, here's the thing. When I did refugee work in Turkey in 2016, and I was Christian, like very evangelical Christian. I've told you guys this before. I left not being Christian because I was so shook that all these Muslim people were just having a great life. Prayers being answered by Allah. Like people living a very good life. Women getting a lot of respect. I don't know, guys. I'm just kind of like, I don't really know. I don't know. Me turning to Islam would be low-key crazy. But I'm also kind of like, someone give me the Quran in English. Do you guys know where you can get the Quran in English?
Anywhere.
I know it's like more legit in Arabic, but I don't know. Am I coming out as Muslim? I don't know, guys. I gotta think about it. But look, I'm just saying, my boss, my lover, everyone's fucking Muslim. Now, I might not be a very good Muslim, but I can try. So, I don't know. Can like the Muslims come in my chat and like talk to me, because I don't fucking know what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, I bet she's a Muslim now. She opened the fucking floodgates with that one. Listen, baby, it seems like you like monotheism, and that's fine. Like, monotheism is great. You like the belief in one God. That's great. You like the community. That's great as well. It's something that a lot of Christian society is kind of missing right now. Doesn't mean you necessarily want to be a Muslim, but who knows? Maybe Islam is right for her. I'm not the one who's going to judge. It's just funny that this is an ongoing situation. Why are all the feminists silent? I smell hypocrisy again. Let's take a look.
Where's the outrage, the protests, the marches for these Afghan women? You guys are so quick to march for Palestine and Israel, but silent when it comes to the treatment of women and children under Sharia law. The Taliban have issued new directives requiring women to cover themselves completely, even going as far as to say that women only need one eye to see. American women have the audacity to scream about how they don't have rights in America, even though most of these whiny, virtue-signaling women have an active OF. And while you're all so distracted by Israel, Palestine, Russia, and Ukraine, Sharia law is becoming so popular in the United Kingdom. The British government is advertising a job position for Sharia law administrator. There are approximately 85 Sharia councils operating across what used to be Great Britain. So let's look at crimes and possible punishments. Theft, amputation of hand, adultery, stoning, apostasy, which is leaving Islam, death. Seems pretty reasonable to me. Did you know in their courts the testimony of a woman is worth half of that of a man? Men can marry non-Muslims, women can't. Men can have 4 wives, but women can only have 1 husband. Oh, and the best part, forced child marriages. Yeah. Where are the activists? Where are the liberals now? Spoiler alert, they're probably in my comments telling me to be open to other religions. I judge how civilized a group is based on how they treat their women. That is all. Okay, thanks. Bye.
She has a point. She has a point. The hypocrisy of this sort of pro-Palestine crowd, which we've been calling out for a long time, does not give a shit about women under Islam at all. They don't care because it doesn't fit their worldview. It's impossible for them to condone it, to come against it. The religion of women. Do you know that according to the words of Muhammad in the Quran, men are in charge of women? Islam teaches that a woman is worth less than a man. Furthermore, their own prophet Muhammad captured women in war and treated them as a tradable commodity, i.e. Sophia. Showing her how to eat a Cinnabon. This looks like it's in Southeast Asia. Indonesia or Malaysia or something. I'm sorry, I can be as open-minded about this stuff as possible, and I can be like, pro-Muslim and like, I am, and I can be like okay with the hijab, but the niqab is where I'll never be able to be on board with the niqab. I just can't. It's hard for me to see as a man. I really struggle with it. It feels so oppressive. It feels so sad. Western feminism has no problem citing Christian patriarchy, Jewish patriarchy, secular misogyny, but when it comes to radical Islam, suddenly everyone gets quiet. Woman attacked and forced into a van because of the color of her hair and not covering her face. I wonder if American LGBT protests defending Palestine realize that they're stupid signs. And I believe this clip is from Iran, by the way. This is the regime here shoving a woman into a van. And the Iranian women are such fighters. She refuses to go in. This is what women under the Islamic regime have been living under for 47 years now. 47 years of this violence and oppression because of not wearing the fucking right hair cover coloring.
I still cannot understand why...
This is Ayan Hirsi Ali.
Feminists, by and large, have been so hospitable to Islam.
Feminism became a weapon of the far left, of these communist, Maoist groups, of these people who were advancing the idea of oppressor and oppressed, where women are presented as a group who are victims of the oppressed, or of the oppressor, and this oppressor is the white male and the white straight male. In that narrative, feminism is not about defending and protecting the rights of women. It's about advancing the neo-communist Maoist agenda. And you see this illustrated, I think, in what we've come to call, the transgender ideology, this militant transgender ideology, where men pretending to be women are invading women's spaces. And so you would expect an outcry from feminists saying this is a no-no. And yet, organized feminism has been either silent or they've sided with the transgender activists. There are exceptions like J.K. Rowling, Helen Joyce, Julie Bindel in the UK. I'm sure there are a few individuals in Australia and then some in America. But these individuals that I just mentioned are not part of an organized feminist group. The ones who are on the streets protesting with Hamas or protesting, taking part in pro-Hamas demonstrations. And they label themselves feminists. These are not defending the rights of girls and women. I've been active in this space of, fighting female genital mutilation, honor killings. I don't know if you know what honor killings are. Young Muslim women who want to assimilate into Western society, they are stopped by their families and they are threatened with violence. They are beaten. They are subjected to curfews. And then eventually, if the girl continues on her way of becoming Westernized, sometimes she is killed. Feminists who are silent on all of this. Look at what's going on in Iran. Where you have protest after protest led by Iranian women fighting for their rights, and feminists are almost always 100% silent on these issues. So feminism as we know it today, as it's taught in these universities, as you see it in street protests, is not about women. It's not about girls. It's about advancing a different agenda.
It's never about the people who are suffering under this way of life. It's never about the women and the girls who actually need help to come out of the oppressive framework that they live in. It's always about virtue signaling to show that you somehow are the person who understands, who's smarter, who's more compassionate. This Muslim woman, is barely speaking out against her community and the men in it.
I don't give a fuck about my reputation as a Muslim woman. I spent my whole life being what they said a good Muslim woman should be. I never partied, I never smoked, I never drank, I never took my hijab off, I never touched a man outside of marriage, I never had a rebellious phase, I never listened to music, I never whatever. I was the definition of what they say a good Muslim woman should be. And yet, when I try to expose a horny dawah bro for sliding into my DMs, the Muslim community tried to rip me apart and destroy my reputation. And that was the biggest wake-up call to me. That was the moment I realized this idea of our reputation is a tool, it's a construct used to control women. As Muslim women, we are heavily taught that our worth lies in how we are perceived, and that one little mistake, one mishap can destroy us forever. But let's look around. Muslim men can do the very things that we are warned against. They can lie, they can cheat, they can have a past of clubbing and sleeping around and smoking and drinking and have secret wives, secret families, and yet their reputation remains intact. What does that tell us? It tells us that this idea of our reputation is not about morality, it's about control. As a Muslim woman, your reputation can be destroyed for simply being a woman with full autonomy, which means it was never real to begin with. So stop living for how you are perceived to others, because the moment you stop living for their perception is when you can actually just live freely.
This is the thing about Western Islam specifically, is that exactly what she's saying. All of it is about reputation and trying to convert as many people as possible, because a lot of times these South Asian Western Muslims are just trying to get it's like a race to get as many converts to the religion as possible. And then what ends up happening is that you end up breaking all the morals of your religion in the first place and being completely hypocritical and antithetical to what you actually believe in. A fully veiled Muslim woman covered her head to toe passionately explains why the West is terrible for women.
The difference between the psychology of Islam and the Western world, we need to really understand it, because I feel like as we're living in the West, most of the time we get brainwashed by their ideologies of feminism and this and that, because they've created the relationship of a husband and a wife more of a competition, right? And they came up with this confused concept of equality, in which they told the woman, they gave the woman their equality, but not by acknowledging woman as a woman, but making her a duplicate of men. They want women to first take on their duties as a woman, which a man can never do, and then they want women to take on the duties of a man, which is to provide. So basically, in result, what they did is that put the burden on women 2 times more. And then they call that equality. And when the Islamic world does not abide by their rules of this confused concept of equality, then they call us misogynist for hating on women. And the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about men and women, he says the believers, both men and women, they're allies of one another. He says in Surah Tawbah, men and women are what? Allies of each other. They're not here to compete with each other.
Islam is perfect, Muslims are not. Study the religion, not the people. Well, okay, I studied the religion. I study the rules of the religion, but they're not implemented by the community. The community doesn't. So what do you need? So I don't understand. I agree with you, by the way, that Western feminism can be very, very cancerous to women, to everyone. It can be very cancerous, period. It's not, Western feminism can be a really fucked up ideology as well. But Eastern Islam is not necessarily the right solution. It's not necessarily the right solution because Eastern Islam can end up being very cancerous as well. Actually, a lot of times in its implementation, it is. Iran passes a law allowing men to marry their 13-year-old adopted daughters, just as the country's new president touts himself as a moderate. There you go. In a lot of these Muslim countries, these things are done to oppress women, to put them in their place, to show them that they are below the men, and nothing is done about it. Not by the wider Muslim community, not by Muslim women. Nobody can. So you have to look at the Western ideology and say, okay, maybe the Western ideology has a point. Maybe they are right in some things. I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you long time. Goodbye, Clats.